abolitionist. I am an abolitionist. An abolitionist. I am an abolitionist. I am an abolitionist. I am an abolitionist.
Now we've gone state by state, and I'm here representing the Abolish Slavery National Network. I'm from New Jersey, but I'm leading the campaign in New Jersey. We got New York, Texas, Florida, Ohio. For the states that have abolished slavery, Tennessee, Alabama, Oregon, Vermont, Colorado, Nebraska, Utah, state by state. We've been correcting the errors of the past and finally closing this chapter in American history so that we can say that we finally live in a country where slavery is over. It's over.
I am an abolitionist. An abolitionist. I am an abolitionist.
I rise in opposition to this amendment language. The original language proposed by the sponsors were these simple 13 words. All persons have the right to be free from slavery and involuntary servitude. This new language asks that the people of New Hampshire codify what our Constitution is currently silent on, by inserting a codification of slavery and involuntary servitude as punitive measures into our Constitution. This amendment proposes that we permanently insert a justification for involuntary servitude and slavery into our Constitution where it is currently silent. And I have to ask, what is happening here? The U.S. Constitution reads, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction." So there's one key value that is not mentioned in our preamble and certainly not reflected in this amendment. And the omission is glaringly obvious and not surprising. It's equality. This omission from our Constitution that protects institutionalized slavery and when it was written, only protected the rights of white men. Women, of course, were not accorded the right to vote until the adoption of the 19th Amendment in 1920, and the 14th Amendment, adopted in 1868 after the Civil War, added the assurance of equal protection, but we know we are still working on that. Berkeley Law Dean Erwin Chemerinsky, an author of numerous books on the topic of the Constitution, this is the Law Dean, says, "The Constitution's biggest flaw was in protecting the institution of slavery. Many constitutional provisions did this. Article 1, Section 9 prohibits Congress from banning the importation of slaves until 1808. And Article 5 prohibited this from being amended. Article 1, Section 2 provides that for purposes of representation in Congress, enslaved black people in a state would be counted as 3/5 of the number of white inhabitants of that state. Article 4, Section 2 contains the Fugitive Slave Clause, which required that an escaped slave be returned to his or her owner. Ultimately, it took a civil war and constitutional amendments to eliminate slavery, but racial inequalities can be traced back to slavery and have existed throughout American history and persist today. Which brings us to the 13th Amendment movement, and more specifically, New Hampshire. Placing clear and concise language affirming our commitment to the abolition of slavery and involuntary servitude is the direction we should be going in. We heard directly from the New Hampshire NAACP, and I quote from a member of that organization, "The passage of this CACR reflects a commitment to ban such practices from New Hampshire. This is a significant step towards justice and equality, and it is important to make a strong statement that slavery and involuntary servitude are banned here. This discussion that we are having is national, and it's important. Last year, Congress discussed a joint resolution to negate a clause of the 13th Amendment in our Constitution that permits slavery or involuntary servitude as punishment for a crime. A joint resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the United States to prohibit slavery and involuntary servitude as a punishment for a crime. That's the direction we should be moving in. That currently still sits in the Senate, but we can move faster and with more authority. We can endorse the work of our forebears from 1857, where a law was passed to abolish slavery and make that permanent. Let's act accordingly. Colleagues, banning slavery with no exceptions isn't a hard lift. I ask you to please vote against this amendment so another motion can be made. Thank you, Mr. President.